The people who followed Lu Muyen and her group quietly saw that the two parties were about to fight, so they immediately hid their figures to watch the battle. Maybe they would even be able to perform a when the snipe and clam grapple, the fisherman benefits. I'll deal with this chick, you all go quickly kill the other people. The tall, big man gave the four of them a look, and a long, scarlet saber appeared in his hand. The other four nodded and looked at Lu Mu Bai and the others with unkind gazes. Yun Zmo faced the Sword Emperor, Yun Lan and Qi Yi Xian faced the yellow-clothed woman, Lu Mu Bai faced the feminine man and Fu Chen faced the last, pink-clothed woman. The battle was imminent. The tall, big man didn't have the heart of showing pity and tender care for Jade. He channeled elemental energy into his scarlet, long saber and swung it down towards Lu Muyen. The red sword light was dazzling in the sky, turning into a circular arc that flew out, stabbing straight towards Lu Muyen's heart. Lu Muyen's eyes were filled with coldness, but she didn't dodge. She pulled out a golden soft sword from her waist, channeled a trace of spiritual energy with the green sea of mist into it, then waved it gently. A round of golden crescent moons poured out like a rich display of lights, merging with the scarlet sword light. Instantly, a dazzling light burst out from within the entire forest. The energy from the collision between the two spread very far away as the surrounding trees broke and collapsed one after another. The scarlet sword light was annihilated in the light while the golden crescent moon burst through the air, heading directly towards the tall, big man. After the dazzling light passed, Lu Muyen's face remained indifferent, and her clothes were in perfect condition while the tall, big man opposite was in ragged clothes with a trace of blood left on his mouth. His eyes carried horror. Saint tool. You actually have a saint tool. The reason why Lu Muyen used her natal magic tool was because, 1, she wanted to try its power again, and 2, she wanted to fight quickly and finish quickly. So what if it's true? It's a pity you don't have the life to enjoy using it. Lu Muyen sneered when she saw the greed in the other's eyes. She turned her attention to the rear and saw that Lu Mu Bai and the others' battles weren't that easy to win. After all, the opponent was from a medium-sized kingdom, so they couldn't possibly not have some trump cards. Mo Yen, go and help, battle quickly, finish quickly, more people are coming towards us. Although Lu Muyen's mental energy was still dormant, but she could still feel the auras approaching. Mo Yan's indifferent eyes didn't even reveal the slightest fighting intent. In his eyes, those few people who were about to become a few corpses were nothing to worry about. Roar. A demonic beast roar resounded throughout the forest. With the pressure of a royal race demonic beast spreading throughout the dense forest, his roar contained a sonic attack and those who were peeping all felt dizzy. The several people in the battle circle were also distracted by this sonic attack. His body suddenly grew several times larger and the flame-like mark on his forehead appeared lifelike. He leapt up and landed straight in front of Lu Mu Bai. Then he stretched out his claws, slapped, and the currently confused, feminine man flew out backwards, spurting a few mouthfuls of blood. Immediately after that, he swept his tail and it landed heavily on the flying body of the other party. The others woke from the sound waves and what entered their eyes was the appearance of the man falling to the ground and bleeding to death. In just a few breaths of time, that woman's demonic beast actually killed one of their people. The several people suddenly had the intention of retreat. The tall, big man's heart trembled. Seeing the tall, big man looking anxious, moving as if to retreat, with a thought, Lu Muyen's golden longsword was divided into 10 small swords, and she mouthed a few words. With a point of her fingers, several talisman seals condensed in midair, flew to the very top, then finally formed a jade-colored talisman belt. Quick! She let out a soft exclamation. Feeling the threat from the rear, the tall, big man took out a big cauldron to block him from behind. His figure dashed out but was then heavily bounced back. You want to escape in the array I arranged? Go die. Lu Muyen's eyes were sharp. The man's pupils constricted and immediately crushed a transparent ball of light in his hand. Don't kill me I sir. In the tall, big man's voice stuck halfway, his eyes opened wide, filled with disbelief. How could this be? He, a sword master at initial phase sword monarch, was actually killed by a woman at middle phase sword king this quickly. Boss. The pink-clothed woman was also slapped to death by Mo Yen. Wasn't this woman's combat power too exaggerated? But how could Yun Zmo and the others, along with Mo Yen, let them escape? Mo Yen chased the yellow-clothed woman, waved his paw in the air, then a black, plum blossom-shaped one palm print slapped directly at the woman's back. Pu. The woman spat out a few mouthfuls of blood, then sped up her steps to escape, but was blocked by Lu Muyen's jade-colored talisman belt. You can't kill me. We're from the EC Empire and there's still a team of people who are much stronger than us. If you kill me, they won't let you all go. The woman turned around and looked at Lu Muyen and the others, saying, unreconciled. The smiling man was already surrounded and killed by Yun Zmo and the others. Lu Muyen walked to the yellow-clothed woman as if leisurely strolling through a courtyard, raised an eyebrow and said, aren't you going to peel my face off to make a human skin mask? The yellow-clothed woman had long lost her previous imposing manner. Her body softened and said pitifully and softly, I just wanted to threaten you a bit earlier. As long as you guys don't kill me, I'll listen to anything you all say. Bing Ji shook the feathers on his body and said with a look of disgust, Owner, this ugly woman is so disgusting, hurry up and kill her. What did your leader crush just now? Lu Muyen looked at Bing Ji amusedly, then looked at the woman and asked though she had a guess in her heart. It's an array ball that reports messages. As long as it's crushed, the message can be sent out. He's reporting the message to our other team of people. The yellow-clothed woman hated inwardly, but still said with softness and meekness. Lu Muyen lowered her head and pondered for a little, then walked to the yellow-clothed woman, pinched her chin, and fed a drug into her mouth. What did you give me to eat? The woman wanted to dig out the drug, but the drug melted in her mouth the moment it entered. She looked at Lu Muyen with a trace of fear in her eyes and asked. Lu Muyen blinked and said with a smile, good stuff. Then she ignored the yellow-clothed woman and looked sharply at a part of the dense forest not far away. If those people dared to come up to seek death, she wouldn't mind also sending them off. Seeing that there weren't any movements, she called to Yun Zmo and the others, then quickly left the place, leaving behind the currently terrified, yellow-clothed woman with constantly changing expressions and no confidence in heart. Lu Muyen, why didn't you kill her? Fu Chen asked in confusion after walking for a while. Translated. Lu Muyen, why didn't you kill her? I'm deliberately keeping her to report. The leading man already passed our news out using an array ball and we don't even know who the enemy is. Instead of letting them hide in the dark, might as well use that woman as bait to fish them out. Lu Muyen knew that killing those people would surely provoke the anger of the other team of the opponent's kingdom, but if they didn't kill them, then the other party wouldn't let them go either, so they could only continue to make enemies. What did you feed that ugly woman? Yunlan asked with a smile. A type of slow-performing poison pill. After taking it, her face will gradually be covered in blue lines, and she will age very quickly. Her cultivation base will also halt, then she will gradually die. A coldness flashed past Lu Muyan's eyes. She had ideas about my face and paid most attention to her own face. It would be too unkind of me not to repay her. In her spare time before, she refined several kinds of poison pills which were specifically designed to deal with those who were scheming and vicious. But she just didn't expect that on the second day after entering here, she would have to use one of the types of pills. The several people couldn't help revealing a bit of a smile. Such a repayment would probably make that woman's life worse than death. Lu Muyen, isn't your combat power too powerful? You didn't spend much effort to kill that sword monarch cultivation base leader. After Fu Chen familiarized himself with everyone, he also gradually said more. Lu Muyan's cultivation base was only middle phase sword king, but the combat power she displayed could probably kill sword masters of middle phase sword monarch cultivation base and above. After all, her means haven't all been exhausted. Actually, the reason why I won so quickly just now was mainly because the other party underestimated the enemy, plus the sudden attack of my spirit pet which deterred him, and he wanted to escape without using his trump cards. That's why he died so quickly. Lu Muyen wasn't being humble. At first, the tall, big man felt that he would definitely win her, so he slightly belittled. When she used her natal magic tool, he was then intimidated, and then he was completely deterred by Mo Yan's power. That person only wanted to escape, so she had a chance to take advantage of it. Otherwise, if he really used his trump cards one by one, she definitely would never have won so easily. Of course, although her own cultivation base was one stage lower than the opponent, but ever since she comprehended the water element to a new height, plus the power of her natal magic tool, without using her trump cards, her comprehensive strength was already comparable to an average advanced phase sword monarch. It wouldn't be difficult to kill a man who was only at initial phase sword monarch. That's true. They underestimated the enemy from the beginning. Fu Chen nodded, and his gaze moved to Mo Yan on Lu Muyan's shoulder, clearly having some lingering fears at the power the fire cloud mink displayed earlier. Qi Yixian knew that this spirit pet of Lu Muyan's was won from an auction, but he didn't expect this demonic beast to have reached tier 6 strength in such a short period of time. It truly was incredible. Could he not be a fire cloud mink? Muyan, your spirit pet is advancing so fast. He couldn't help but sigh with emotion. Lu Muyan raised an eyebrow and joked, his owner, I am a genius, so he naturally can't be too far behind. Her joking remarks also avoided Qi Yixian's words. Was there such a way to praise oneself? I wonder how strong the other team of the EC Empire is? Yunlan said with a solemn expression. Definitely much stronger than these rabble. Lu Muyen saw that Yun Zmo obviously knew about the EC Empire and asked him, how is the EC Empire's national strength? The cultivation bases of the few people they killed were mostly piled up with pills. They had a cruel temperament and used ruthless methods. They were probably arrogant pupils raised by distinguished clans, and the other team probably felt disdain towards them, so they acted separately. Of course, disdain for this team didn't mean that they could tolerate them being killed. Getting into trouble was inevitable. The EC Empire is a large kingdom in the western region. It ranks in the middle of the entire Tianling continent's rankings and is much stronger than Yenzhou Kingdom. That's why they don't take us seriously. Yun Zimo's expression was obscure as he answered. Lu Muyen smiled and teased, who do you think will take us seriously? The red jade tablet in our hands means that we're soft peaches, hurry up and come squeeze us. Pfft. After hearing her words, their originally heavy hearts gradually lightened. Then according to the strength of the EC Empire, how many places are they allocated? Lu Muyen asked. 11. Their other team should be an elite group of 6. Yun Zmo paused, then said, in each region, the large kingdom's forces are very intricate and complex, so the places to participate in the continental tournament for hegemony couldn't have been allocated like Yenzhou Kingdom. Under the pressure of the empire's imperial family and distinguished clans, they will also allow a number of places to be given to other clans' pupils to make up for the numbers, just like the 5 earlier. But they would also carefully select an elite team to compete for the top 100. If we encounter elite teams from large and medium-sized kingdoms, then there is currently 0 chance of winning. So that's how it is. No wonder that in the previous refuge city, I felt that a portion of the people weren't as strong as I thought they would be. So it's because they entered the competition through connections. Lu Muyen rubbed her chin as she said. Lu Mu Bei's light eyes darkened, even if they came in through connections, but it also means their own strength isn't that bad, otherwise it'd be impossible to be sent by their empires to participate in such a competition. We still have to hurry up to improve our strength. His words touched the bottom of everyone's heart. The strength of a random group of people even just looked stronger than them. How did the people of Yanzhou Kingdom advance to above 2000th? Lu Mu Yan only found out that there were tens of thousands of talented sword masters. For a small kingdom like Yanzhou, let alone top 100, even entering top 3000 was a good result. Yun Zimo's cold, handsome face was in a daze for a moment before realizing what she meant, then replied with a light smile, I heard that they hid in a secretive mountain forest to cultivate during the preliminary round. Only after they advanced their cultivation bases, did they come out to kill demonic beasts to score points. This method is actually used by many sword masters from small and medium-sized kingdoms. After all, as long as they weren't at a refuge city, in the wild, as long as sword masters met and fought, then the organizer wouldn't care about their life or death. Lu Mu Yan's eyes lit up. She pointed at the mountain ahead of her and said, that could be considered a good way. Let's also go to a hidden place deep in the mountain to cultivate for a month before going out. Their team was indeed quite weak. If they encountered the other elite team of the EC Empire, they would probably lose a few people. The spiritual force in this competition space was abundant, and they could even directly absorb and refine demonic beast crystal cores. She could also refine a few types of pills that could improve cultivation bases for the others to take. If there wasn't enough time, then she could just get Bing Ji to transform and fly over directly. Alright. Well, listen to you. Yun Zimo and the others pondered a little, then agreed to her proposal. It would take half a month for them to travel non-stop to the central area from here. After negotiating, the several people flew towards the thickly forested mountains not far away. When Lu Mu Yan and the others arrived at the foot of the remote mountains, the entire forested mountain was enveloped by mist and the scenery inside was sometimes visible, sometimes not, giving people a sense of mysteriousness. The remote mountain forest was not an area that must be passed to travel to the central area, but it was a good place to hunt demonic beasts. The map in the Jade Tablet categorized this area as Class 3 Danger Area. We haven't seen any sword masters enter along the way either. We need to be careful. Yun Zimo looked at the remote mountain ahead of them and said. In the competition space, there were 3 types of danger areas, namely Class 1, Class 2, and Class 3. Class 1 was the most dangerous, while Class 3 was relatively less dangerous, but for it to be marked on the map in the Jade Tablet by the organizer meant that it still definitely wasn't that simple. Lu Mu Yan took out a few sachets and handed them to the others. Wear this. There's some medicinal powder in it that can help guard against venomous snakes and insects. The more dangerous the place, the safer it is. Not many sword masters enter here. Let's find a secret place to hide and cultivate. Lu Mu Yan turned around and said to them, follow me well. Mo Yan, lead the way. Lu Mu Yan poked Mo Yan's body and said with a smile. Mo Yan's cold eyes revealed a bit of helplessness. He, a dignified king with his own territory in the demon realm, was often ordered around by this woman. Even if he told other demons, they might not even believe him. But he didn't hesitate either. He jumped off Lu Mu Yan's shoulder and headed into the remote mountain. Lu Mu Yan and the others followed closely behind. They still believed in the ability of this spirit pet of hers. All the way up the mountain, they didn't encounter a single demonic beast, led by Mo Yan to avoid them. Should we kill some demonic beasts to earn points along the way? Qi Yixian asked as they walked. Lu Mu Yan didn't turn her head back and said, we can't. Once the killing begins, it'll attract the attention of the high-level demonic beasts deep in the mountains. Our cultivation plan wouldn't be able to be implemented then. That's right. I didn't think it through carefully. Qi Yixian pressed his lips together and said. Lu Mu Yan turned to look at him and said, no problems, we can kill when we come out. The several people hid their auras and rushed through the mountains without rest. They encountered venomous snakes and ants, but when those approached, it was as if they smelt something they feared and avoided them in horror. Lu Mu Yan's sachets were highly credited for that. These sachets were also prepared by her before she came. The spiritual force in this remote mountain was much denser than outside, and just walking in the mountains was refreshing. Mo Yan, can you feel the level of the king in this mountain? Lu Mu Yan didn't communicate telepathically and asked in front of the several people. Mo Yan walked in front. There are 3 tier 7 demonic beasts here, each occupying their own territory. As long as we don't set foot on their core territory, we'll be fine. Are there any spiritual herbs nearby? Lu Mu Yan knew that Mo Yan's nose was very powerful and that he had the innate talent to find spiritual herbs and spiritual items. Mo Yan glanced at her lightly. Naturally there are spiritual herbs and spiritual items here, but many are guarded by demonic beasts. If you want to beat the grass and alert the snake, then I won't stop you. Lu Mu Yan glared at him in amusement. We can cultivate, come out, then go rob them a bit. Her mental energy had been dormant the entire time. We're almost there. Mo Yan was now a tier 6 demonic beast, but his demonic sense was at the pinnacle of this interface, so the general situation in this remote mountain was already in his mind. After walking for another hour, the few people emerged from the lush, primitive, remote forest. What they saw was a large waterfall, and below the waterfall was a deep pond. The spiritual force here was even more abundant and denser than outside. This place had beautiful scenery, a quiet environment, and abundant spiritual force. It was perfect for cultivation. This place looks very good, so how are there no demonic beasts occupying it? Lu Mu Yan looked at Mo Yan and asked. Mo Yan walked to a tree that had withered and fell to the ground, looked at it casually and said, there should have been a demonic beast occupying this place before, but who knows why it doesn't appear anymore. Either it died or it went out. What if it comes back? Naturally either we let it remain or we chase it away. Mo Yen raised his eyes, as if saying your questions were very boring. Lu Mu Yen shrugged and looked around. After thinking about it, she took out an array flag from her interspatial ring and 4 jade sculptures of the 4 divine beasts that she had nurtured. She pinched her fingers, then buried it in the ground at the 4 locations of east, south, west and north, and planted the array flag in the middle of the array. Her hands were constantly dancing like butterfly wings, and jade-colored void talismans came out of her palms one by one, landing around the array. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew past, enveloping the surroundings near the waterfall with a veil of mist. What kind of array is this? Yunzi Mo found that this array could block the penetration of mental energy, and it even had the effect of concealing one's aura, so he couldn't resist asking. The combination of the 4 symbols killing array and the 4 symbols illusory array. Lu Mu Yen retracted her hands and said, as long as there are demonic beasts and people passing by, what they'll see is not a waterfall, but an abandoned mountain range. Forceful entry will have them receive the bombardment of the 4 symbols killing array. Her tone was very light, but it shocked the others. They didn't expect that Lu Mu Yan's array attainments had already reached such a level. Such an array was probably something that could only be arranged by a grade 3 array master or higher. In the past, the demonic beast's cave was in the waterfall. You can use its, or you can create a separate one. Mo Yen stared at the center of the waterfall and said, let's go in for a look. Lu Mu Yen had a smile on her lips. She tapped her toes and flew into the waterfall. The others followed suit and flew in. There was a large cave in the depths of the waterfall. The cave was very dry, and the layout was very simple. There was also a cave within the cave, which was probably the den of the demonic beast. Looking at a large piece of snakeskin that had fallen off in the cave, it could be judged that the previous owner of the cave was a snake-type demonic beast. Aside from the snakeskin, they didn't find anything else. There's nothing in this cave. The snake probably either went out or moved out. Lu Mu Yen took a look around and felt that this place was quite suitable for them to cultivate, and she was also too lazy to make another cave. Let's cultivate here. I'll use that cave in the cave to refine pills. Sure. The several people naturally wouldn't object. Since that day, they temporarily lived in this cave. There would be demonic beasts breaking in from time to time, but they were either confused by the array or they were killed by the array after forcing their way in. Lu Mu Yen also spent a few days refining a lot of pills, including those that improved cultivation, replenished elemental energy, nourished elemental energy in one's origins, antidotes, and those for healing. After giving Yunzi Mo and the others a few bottles of grade 3 elemental energy purifying pills, she entered the cave within the cave to absorb the spiritual force of heaven and earth as well, turning it into pure spiritual energy in her dantian while also constantly refining and absorbing the energy of the demonic beast crystal cores. Time passed bit by bit and the rankings on the jade tablet kept jumping, but Lu Mu Yen and the 5 others didn't fluctuate. She also quickly dropped from within the top 50 to below 1000th. Seeing that the points for the name Lu Mu Yen hadn't changed since that day, many people guessed that she might have already suffered an unexpected death. As expected, she was a person from a small kingdom that wasn't fit to be brought onto the stage. Translated product by Mayar Come True. A month later. Lu Mu Yen opened her eyes from the state of cultivation, opened her palms, clenched them again, then punched towards the cave wall casually. Boom! A corner of the cave wall collapsed instantly. She closed her fist and smiled with satisfaction. The result of this 1 month seclusion was very good. She had entered the 3rd layer of her sorcerer skill body refinement method 1, and her cultivation base had also risen to peak phase Sword King. As long as there was an opportunity, she could break through to Sword Monarch. This time, not only did her Sword Master's cultivation base improve, but her Immortal Cultivator's cultivation base also broke through from initial phase to middle phase foundation establishment stage. Soon, she would be able to enter final phase foundation establishment stage, then as long as she advanced to core formation stage, her strength would take a high leap in quality. How was cultivating? Lu Mu Yen got up, walked out of the cave, and asked the few people who sat together, chatting and laughing. We all advanced to Sword Monarch. Lu Mu Bai raised his head and replied with a light smile. Yeah. It's all thanks to your pill. Otherwise we wouldn't have been able to successfully advance to Sword Monarch cultivation base this time. Fu Chen said gratefully. Yunlan and Qi Yi Xian were talented from the beginning. After being cleansed by the marrow cleansing pill, their cultivation speed also became much faster. Plus, with the help of Lu Mu Yan's pills this time, they also broke through to Sword Monarch cultivation base, surprising even themselves. Although they were surprised that Lu Mu Yan could refine grade 3 pills, but they didn't ask more questions. There was just a feeling that it simply should be so. Lu Mu Yan held her forehead. It seems that I'm still at the bottom. Although your cultivation base is at the bottom, but your combat power is the strongest among us. A rare smile appeared on Yunzi Mo's face. Actually, your cultivation base could really be used as a cover. You can usually perform with average results, but then amaze the world with a single feat. That's true, being low profile is the king's path. The several people looked at her in amusement. It would be strange if she could keep a low profile. We've rested enough. It's time for us to go hunting. Lu Mu Yan moved her fist. She just wanted to try the 3rd layer of her sorcerer skill. Yunzi Mo and the others were usually relatively simple and indifferent, but after staying with her for so long, they were instead infected to like to seek stimulation as well. Let's go, should we hunt in this mountain first? Yunlan asked Lu Mu Yan with a smile. In this team, based on Yun Song and the others' thoughts, Yun Zmo would become their leader, but after more than a month of getting along, including Yun Zmo, they all held Lu Mu Yan's decision first. She gradually became their core. Of course, such a place filled with treasures to score points, we can't miss it. The several people quickly left the cave behind the waterfall. Lu Mu Yan took out the crystal cores of the demonic beasts that accidentally entered her array and was killed, put the array away and left the area together. Mo Yan directly searched for tier 6 demonic beasts to kill. Lu Mu Yan poked Mo Yan's body, indicating that he could start. Tier 5 demonic beasts not only gave few points, but for their current cultivation base, battling them already had no value for training, so their current goals were for tier 6 demonic beasts. Mo Yan glanced at Lu Mu Yan. He must have owed this woman something in his past life, otherwise why was he always being ordered by her? Bing Ji, this time you take them to find tier 6 demonic beasts. Mo Yan swept the 7-colored parrot standing lazily on Lu Mu Yan's shoulder and said coldly. Bing Ji was dazed for a moment, then turned to meet Mo Yan's cold gaze. He laughed dryly, got it, boss. Boss? When did you acknowledge Mo Yan as boss? Didn't these two demonic beasts always not get along? Just what happened during her seclusion for cultivation? Owner, I know. Meow Meow, who was coiled around Lu Mu Yan's wrist, stuck out her head and said in a tender, baby voice, Stinky Bird was often beaten by Boss Yen until he cried for dad and screamed for mum when you were in seclusion, then took the initiative to recognize Boss Yen as boss in the end. Meow Meow had the bloodline of a true dragon to begin with and had been devouring demonic beast crystal cores and pills refined by Lu Mu Yan recently, so she had also successfully broken through to tier 5. Ordinary demonic beasts could only speak human words at tier 6, while because of her pure bloodline talent, she could speak human words at just tier 5, and her body could change freely. Bing Ji's face darkened, shut up, what do you, a little baby, know? Don't talk nonsense. Although that was mostly truth, but it was really embarrassing saying that in front of so many people. Not to mention that he was just bullied badly, where was he crying for dad and screaming for mum? Humph. Meow Meow huffed and rubbed Lu Mu Yan's hand intimately with her head. Lu Mu Yan was the closest to Meow Meow among these spirit pets. She used her finger to rub the head of the little white snake and glanced at Bing Ji, your boss has spoken, hurry up and get to work. Although the spirit pet seemed to be bickering, but she could feel that their relationship was even closer. It seemed that it was also time to release Xue Xue and have him be in more contact with them. Thinking about hunting demonic beasts, a meaningful smile rose on her lips. Xue Xue should also come out to improve his strength. Right now, the members of their little team didn't have any selfish motives, so it was fine even if they knew about Xue Xue's existence. Bing Ji had a bitter look on his face and he found that he had been unlucky since he met Ming Xiu. Every day, he regretted countless times why his mouth had to be so cheap to harass the beautiful man. Now, he didn't just need to be ordered around by owner, but also by that little pretty boy Mo Yan. Even if Bing Ji's cultivation base was sealed by Ming Xiu, but he was still a tier 8 demonic beast, and he soon led Lu Mu Yan and the others to the territory of a few tier 6 demonic beasts. As soon as they stepped into the forest, the tier 6 demonic beasts in that forest discovered them and even took the initiative to come to their door. You human beings are so daring. How dare you come here to act wildly? There was a total of 5 demonic beasts, all of them in initial phase or middle phase tier 6, and one of them, a diamond ape, looked at the people unkindly. A flying plume peacock beside him smacked his lips and said, wasn't it perfect that they've come to be our food? I haven't drunk the blood of a human sword master for so long. I was originally planning to follow the next beast tide to go eat some human flesh, but now they've sent themselves here to die. Let's help them. A mutant lynx licked his lips and said. Another mottled leopard and wood mammoth were also very excited, as if Lu Mu Yan and the others were already their food. The demonic beasts in this remote forested mountain are not only ignorant but also extremely stupid. Lu Mu Yan shook her head and sighed. Woman, what did you say? Who's extremely stupid? The hot-tempered wood mammoth wasn't having it after hearing her say that. Lu Mu Yan rolled her eyes at him, of course I'm talking about you all. On our side there's 6 people plus 2 demonic beasts, you've only got 5 demonic beasts, and your cultivation base is also similar to ours. You think we'll be as stupid as you all, just standing here and wait for you to eat us? Humph, what does cultivation base count for in our territory? Prepare to die. After the mutant lynx finished speaking, he raised his head and roared, clearly calling for companions. Lu Mu Yan didn't stop him either. The more he called, the better. As long as they didn't call over a tier 7 demonic beast, all was good. I picked that wood mammoth, you all share the rest. Lu Mu Yan's eyes locked onto that thick-skinned wood mammoth and her hands were covered in a layer of red fluorescent light. It was no longer obvious that it was fire elemental energy condensation. The wood mammoth felt that he was being belittled. He was actually chosen by the weakest woman in this group of humans. This was a kind of humiliation. He roared and charged towards Lu Mu Yan first. He must tear this human into pieces and devour her. Lu Mu Yan saw that the wood mammoth took the initiative to come at her and her eyes were filled with fighting spirit. Excellent, come at me. After speaking, she tapped her toes and flew up, landing directly on the back of the wood mammoth and bombarded him with punch after punch. The wood mammoth was furious and ran around everywhere trying to toss her off his back, but it was as if she was stuck there, and he couldn't get rid of her no matter what. A burning sensation of pain transmitted from his back. What was that woman's hand made of? Not only was it so tough, but it also had flames. It was hurting him to death. The wood mammoth roared a few times and slammed into the surrounding trees continuously. Lu Muyen revealed interest in her eyes. Seemed like this mammoth wasn't too stupid, still knew how to use a branch to scrape her off. She also wanted to try the mammoth's attack front on, so she jumped off his back and slammed her fists into the mammoth's face. The mammoth was indeed a tier 6 demonic beast. He covered his head with the demonic energy of his entire body. Although the opponent's fist that bombarded him made him a little dizzy, but because of the barrier formed by his demonic energy, the scorching fist winds were also blocked by more than half. Why does your younger sister like hand-to-hand combat so much? Truly how violent. Fu Chen's lips couldn't help twitching when he saw Lu Muyan's choice of fighting method. Lu Mubai glanced at him. My little sister is different, I just like her this violent. After he finished speaking, he took the initiative to greet the mutant lynx whose speed was his biggest advantage. After advancing their strength, the rest were also rubbing their fists and palms, and chose a demonic beast each to battle. Yunzi Mo saw that the demonic beasts were all divided up by the few people, and his eyes that were as dark and thick as ink were dyed with a smile. He hugged his arms and leaned against a tree to watch the battle. Roar. The combat power of the few were good to begin with. Although they were in the territory of demonic beasts, but they had the upper hand. Lu Muyen even beat the wood mammoth until it was dodging east and hiding west. Her movements were very flexible. No matter how he dodged, he simply couldn't escape her fiery fist. Ground fracture. The wood mammoth stomped on the ground one huge foot after one huge foot. His demonic energy exploded in an instant and cracks appeared on the ground, attacking Lu Muyen directly. Lu Muyen curled her lips into a smile. Facing the crevices with strong demonic energy, she slammed a few palms, causing ravines to spread across the earth. The wood mammoth used many methods, but none of the attacks could truly land on Lu Muyen. His entire body was screaming in pain, and he suffered indescribable agony. Didn't they say that all human women were made of water? Why was this woman even more violent than them? Demonic beast, she wanted to die. Several demonic beasts had turned into their strongest true forms, but they only had the upper hand for a short moment before they were suppressed by their opponents. When they were about to lose, rumbling suddenly sounded from the mountains. The wood mammoth was overjoyed. Their reinforcements had come. He turned and glared at Lu Muyen fiercely, wishing to eat her flesh and drink her blood. Lu Muyen's eyes turned cold. She also heard that there were a lot of demonic beasts running over, and she immediately released the human-eating blood-thorn vine king. Owner, you finally remembered me. Shui looked at Lu Muyen with an aggrieved expression. Bing Ji, that stinky thing, often came into the spirit beast ring to show off, and he just wanted to go out and also follow owner every day. Lu Muyen held her forehead. Stop. Don't learn Bing Ji's disgusting manner. Then she pointed in the direction of the wood mammoth and said, you've been hungry for a long time, today you can eat as you like. Shui saw that the wood mammoth opposite was full of marks from being bombarded by fists. It seemed that it must be owner's masterpiece. Little owner, mighty. He didn't delay either. After all, he hadn't drunk blood until his fill for many years. He embedded his rhizome deeply into the ground below, waved his dark golden main branch and grabbed towards the wood mammoth. The wood mammoth had lived here for many years but had never seen such a demonic plant. However, the palpitations of danger spread throughout his body. He instinctively turned around and ran, but he couldn't match Shui's speed. In only a bit, he was captured by Shui's vines. The small thorns on the golden vines instantly pierced into the wood mammoth's body, and the paralyzing toxin spread all over his body. He fell heavily to the ground, and his copper, bell-like eyes were filled with terror, as if he had already felt the shadow of death. On the contrary, Shui was extremely excited and quickly absorbed the blood essence of the wood mammoth. In only a moment, an incomparably huge tier 6 wood mammoth was sucked into dried meat. You're not allowed to eat the crystal core. Seeing Shui roll up a yellowish-brown crystal core and about to feed it into his humanized mouth on his tree trunk, Lu Muyen immediately flew up and snatched the crystal core. Earth attribute crystal cores are still useful to me. You just suck the blood. Lu Muyen rolled her eyes at the extremely aggrieved Shui. Did he think she didn't know? Sucking blood essence had better effect for human-eating blood-thorn vines than consuming crystal cores. Go, suck up those demonic beasts too. Lu Muyen kicked him when she saw that he was staring at the crystal core in her hand, reluctant to give it up. You look so unpromising, how embarrassing. Hearing what owner said, the human-eating blood-thorn vine king immediately shook with energy, turned his head, and narrowed his eyes at the demonic beasts who were fighting with Lu Mubai and the others. That fiery gaze almost turned those demonic beasts into dust. Seeing that the wood mammoth was sucked into dry meat by the tier 6 demonic plant, then being stared at by his scorching gaze, their scalps went numb. Quickly leave. The mutant lynx shouted and fled towards the depths of the forest. The other demonic beasts didn't delay either and fled in different directions, for fear that they would become food of the terrifying demonic plant if they were one step late. However, their opponent was the human-eating blood-thorn vine king who had gained intelligence for many years already. He had already laid countless vine trap nets underground. The few demonic beasts were all restrained by the golden vines. As soon as the blood thorns pierced their body, they all felt unable to move. They could only feel the blood in their bodies being drained bit by bit with fear in their eyes, and their aura of life also gradually vanished together. Human-eating blood-thorn vine king. Yunzi Mo's cold and unwavering eyes revealed surprise, and the others also watched, with numb scalps, the golden-colored plant excitedly suck the blood essence of the demonic beasts. Aside from Lu Mu Bai and Yunlan, none of them thought that Lu Mu Yen would still have such a terrifying demonic plant spirit pet. Most importantly, it was also a tier 6 demonic plant king. Just what sort of trump cards did this woman have left? The more they came into contact with Lu Mu Yen, the more shocked they were. Towards her endless methods, they grew from shock to numbness. When Lu Mu Yen found that her name on the jade tablet began to jump again, she immediately stopped. Shwe, leave them alive first. Yet who knew that she shouted it one step too late. She said with embarrassment to Yunlan and the others, I forgot you won't get points if you don't kill these demonic beasts first. Later, before this ruffian sucks and eats, you kill them first. Alright. They weren't people who were fussy. Seeing her rare display of embarrassment, their eyes were filled with smiles. Roar. The roar of demonic beasts sounded one after another. More than 20 tier 5 or 6 demonic beasts came stampeding over. It was just that they had yet to even come close when they were all caught by Shwe's vine net that he had long planted as ambushes. This time, Lu Mu Yen had him leave a breath for the demonic beasts, and only after Lu Mu Bai and the others killed them first did he devour all their blood essence. The demonic beasts called for friends and companions, and they came in waves from all directions, opening up all the pores of Shwe's body, excitedly preparing for a feast. Lu Mu Yan's points soared again, and the speed was even faster than the first day. It only took an hour to soar from around 700 points to more than 2,000 points, also frightening many sword masters. Meanwhile, in the nearest cave deep in this remote forested mountain, a man with blue tattoos on the side of his face opened his eyes that were filled with ice. There is actually a human sword master who dares kill so freely in this king's territory. Seeking death. After speaking, he narrowed his eyes dangerously and he disappeared from the cave in a flash. Translated product by Mayarcum. The tier 5 and tier 6 demonic beasts came wave after wave, but as soon as they stepped in, they were restrained by the escape-proof net that the human-eating bloodthorn vine king set up and violently sucked dry of blood essence. The surroundings were filled with the corpses of demonic beasts that had been sucked dry, leaving not a drop of blood. Looking at this scene, Yunzi Mo and the others all felt that their scalp was numb. If a tier 6 demonic beast intruded, Lu Mu Yen would let them fight first to hone their combat ability, and when it was around enough, would she let Shwe drink to his fill. The tier 7 demonic beast is coming. Mo Yan's originally indifferent eyes narrowed. Bing Ji also noticed that the aura was constantly approaching, then he flapped his wings and said, What are you afraid of? It's just a tier 7 little vermin. Fu Chen and the others were speechless after hearing his words. Wasn't the 7-colored parrot's tone too arrogant? Was only just a parrot too. Lu Mu Yen reached out her hand and knocked Bing Ji's head, saying telepathy, Don't forget that you're currently only at tier 6 cultivation base. Well, act according to the circumstance in a bit. If we can't handle it, well, run. Bing Ji was instantly like a deflated ball and complained, It's all that red-clothed beautiful man's fault, sealing my demonic energy, otherwise little master, will sweep this remote mountain. Humph, there's a peak phase tier 8 demon king in the core area of this remote mountain. Even if we don't seal your demonic energy, you wouldn't be able to win either. Mo Yen glanced at Bing Ji. Lu Mu Yen furrowed her brows, Didn't you say there are only 3 tier 7 demonic beasts? How did a peak phase tier 8 demonic beast king come into the picture? Before, he should have been dormant so his aura couldn't be felt, but he woke up in the last few days. Mo Yen said. If that peak phase tier 8 demon king came, then we'll be doomed. After killing this wave of demonic beasts, we should leave as soon as possible. Lu Mu Yen just had an indescribable sense of crisis. What about the tier 7 demonic beast? Bing Ji asked. Lu Mu Yen spread out her hands, shrugging, Don't know. If we can't beat it, well, just run. Ming Xiu only sealed your demonic energy, but not your flying speed. The reason why they weren't afraid of the tier 7 demonic beasts before was mainly because they had Bing Ji who could help them escape. Mu Yen, is there really a tier 7 demonic beast coming? Yunlan's handsome face revealed a bit of gravity. Lu Mu Yen nodded, looked into the distance not far away and said, It's already here. After her words fell, an unfamiliar aura suddenly locked onto this area. Wave after waves of high-level pressure attacked, and Yunzi Mo and the others' faces paled. Pu. Qi Yi Xian and Yunlan, who were slightly weaker, were injured internally by the pressure and spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. Lu Mu Yan's eyes turned cold and she kept forming seals in front of her chest. A jade-colored rune flew out of her body, enveloping the several people. With the shield made of void talismans, the pressure weakened a lot. The blood that the few people were about to spit out from their chests were suppressed. Oh. There's some competence. A white-clothed man with blue tattoos on the side of his face came out from the void. As soon as the man approached, Lu Mu Yen smelled a familiar scent. He's the original owner of the cave behind the waterfall. Mo Yan's telepathic voice sounded in her mind. Lu Mu Yen also found that the smell from the man's body was the same as the snakeskin in the cave and an understanding rose in her eyes. The cave was probably the place where this demon cultivator resided when he was a tier 6 before. It was only after he advanced to tier 7 did he change to a better place to cultivate. How dare you come here to kill, you're seeking death. The man swept his gaze over the dry corpses on the ground with a displeased expression and said coldly. He didn't actually care much about the dead demonic beasts, but to kill on his territory had already provoked his dignity. We're just standing here, they sent themselves to our door. Lu Mu Yen said with an indifferent expression and her arms folded. No matter the reason, you have only a dead end. The man's eyes were grim and cold, like a venomous snake flicking their forked tongues. Lu Muyan's lips curled up. She could kill tier 6 demonic beasts now, but she hadn't yet fought a tier 7. She could give it a try. It's not up to you to decide whether we live or die. Lu Muyan's eyes were filled with fighting intent. Yenner, come back. Lu Mubai was anxious. Little sister was too reckless. Lu Muyan turned her head and smiled, saying, elder brother, it's alright, if I can't beat him, then he'll run. She said this, but it couldn't reduce the worry in the hearts of the several people. You, a little girl, is going to challenge this king? Lu Muyan's hand was enveloped with a faint red light. Arrogant. The man said disdainfully, let's fight. Lu Muyan tapped her toes after she finished speaking. The man's eyes were indifferent, and with a light wave of his palm, Lu Muyan's fist power was resolved, while the remaining force attacked her chest. With a smirk on her lips, she used flash steps. Her steps were light, and her body moved like a ghost, quickly avoiding the remaining force of the palm strike. Boom! The palm wind instantly knocked down countless trees behind where she preciously was. When the several people within the shield saw that, their heartbeats were about to stop. Lu Muyan's hands were clenched into claws. She approached the man and kept clawing at him, and the several people only saw a phantom, occasionally appearing, then disappearing. The man also put away his inattentiveness at this time. He didn't expect that this little woman with a seemingly weak cultivation base was actually somewhat competent. He raised his hand and met Lu Muyan's fists or claws with his palms one by one, then the two of them kept clashing against each other in another close-quarters combat. Pu. After a while, Lu Muyan's figure flew out and slammed into a big tree heavily, blood spurting out of her mouth. Yenner/Muyan. The several people couldn't resist shouting when they saw her injured. She reached out her hand and wiped the blood from her lips, the fighting intent in her eyes not decreasing, refreshing. After she started cultivating the sorcerer skill body refining method, this was the first time she was injured during close-quarters combat. Her internal organs were a little damaged right now, but in the battle just now, she actually found a sense of comprehension. It seemed that one really indeed had to fight against people or demons stronger than oneself to improve. This Snake King was indeed very strong. She raised her head, then utilized the tree to jump up and threw out punches several more times faster than before. This was her limit. The Snake King hadn't moved his bones and muscles for a long time. Seeing that this woman was very tough, he planned to play with her a bit before killing her. So for the first time, he moved his foot and flew up. Boom boom. The fists of the two met one after another. The surrounding earth trembled, and the trees were affected, collapsing one by one. Lu Muyan and the man's cultivation base was too far apart. She could keep up in terms of understanding, but speed was still lacking. After dozens of rounds of bombardment, she was slammed in the chest by the man's palm and flew out hundreds of meters, spewing a few mouthfuls of blood. Pu. She clutched her chest, lowered her eyes, and pondered, recalling the battle just now as she muttered to herself, so that's how it is, my previous direction seems to be a bit wrong. Dozens of rounds of battles gave her a deeper understanding of her own body refining method. The man suddenly looked towards the depths of the forest in the distance, and his eyes moved obscurely onto Lu Muyan. This king will send you all to death now. Lu Muyan's eyes narrowed, used flash steps to dash into the shield and shouted at Bing Ji, escape. Escape. As soon as Lu Muyan's voice sounded, Bing Ji instantly turned into his true form, and with a swing of his wings, he tossed Lu Mubai and the others onto his back. Then he spread his wings and flew towards the periphery of the remote mountain. The Snake King obviously didn't expect that there would be a tier 6 Isle one hidden in the midst. He felt that he was made a fool of. Hiss hiss. A few hissing sounds carrying boundless demonic energy sounded, and a giant white snake hundreds of meters long flew up directly into the sky, opening his mouth and bit towards the Isle one. Yunzi Mo and the others were all stunned by the demonic energy of the roar just now. The Snake King's big, bucket-like eyes constricted. Hiss. He swept his tail heavily and swung the 10 flying swords away. But Lu Muyan's natal magic tool was made of heavenly frost golden essence and several rare material. While the flying swords were slapped away, a few large gaps were also torn on the tail by the sword aura. While the flying swords that had lost its center of gravity was instantly brought back into Lu Muyan's body. Bing Ji also used the few breaths of time that the flying swords bought to escape from the range of the remote mountains. As soon as the huge snake head touched the layer of mist that shrouded the remote mountains, it stopped, as if he were very afraid of the outside world. His eyes were filled with anger and coldness. Damned humans. He had lived for thousands of years, and this was the first time he had encountered such a situation, and it was also the first time he had been hurt by a human being. But after remembering one thing, he turned into a human figure again, and a sneer appeared on his lips. So what if you escape this time? When that time comes, this king will tear you all to pieces. After speaking, he glanced at the mist in disgust, then turned and disappeared into the forest. Before she prepared to escape, Lu Muyan had retrieved the reluctant Xue Xue into the spirit beast ring already. Bing Ji flew maniacally all the way. Seeing that the Snake King hadn't chased them here, he landed in a desolate area with no one. Yenner, are you alright? Lu Mubai asked in concern. Yunzi Mo and the others also cast worried looks towards her. This woman was truly so daring, even daring to provoke a tier 7 Snake King. They really didn't know what to say. Lu Muyan took a bottle of healing pills and waved her hand dismissively. No problem. The Snake King's cultivation base was at middle phase tier 7, which was equivalent to a high-level sword sovereign, and he also contained a trace of Jiao bloodline, making him very strong. With her current cultivation base at peak phase sword king, being able to fight him a few dozen rounds was all thanks to the sorcerer skill. This time, although she was injured in the battle, but it helped her understand a few points that she didn't understand when cultivating the sorcerer skill. She didn't regret the impulsive decision, and the fighting spirit in her body hadn't completely faded. That Snake King doesn't seem to dare to step out of that remote mountain, she telepathically said to Mo Yen. Mo Yan's indifferent eyes had a little more complexity. Indeed, he can't step out of the remote mountain, but not because there's something blocking his steps. Instead, he seemed to be afraid of something. I just feel like there are a lot of secrets hidden in this competition space. Lu Muyen reached out and pinched between her eyebrows. The sense of crisis not only didn't weaken, but was deepening. Mo Yen nodded. Indeed. Maybe we'll meet the Snake King in the future again. You've made a huge mess again. Although he said this, but his tone was very indifferent. Obviously, he didn't really take the Snake King to heart. Lu Muyen rolled her eyes at him. What did this have to do with her? Even if she didn't fight the Snake King wouldn't let them go either. When there's a lot of debt, you don't worry anymore. No problems. It was still best to improve her strength as soon as possible. She already made 2 huge enemies as soon as she entered here. She found that she really was going all out. You should hurry up and advance to Sword Monarch soon. Mo Yen had a smile in his eyes. It'll teach you a secret skill after you advance to Sword Monarch. That way, when you encounter that Tier 7 Snake King, you won't have to run away. Lu Muyan's eyes lit up, then he'll have to advance quickly. Mo Yan's secret skill definitely wouldn't be weak. The few people recovered for 2 hours, then began to rush. It's getting dark. We need 4 hours before we could arrive at the next refuge city. Yunzi Mo looked at the color of the sky and said. The several people didn't ask about Bing Ji. In their eyes, Lu Muyen doing something out of the ordinary had only become a matter of course, and they were already numb to her tricks. It's alright, either way, we have to earn points. If we encounter a group of demonic beasts on the road, then just kill them. Lu Muyen looked at her jade tablet where she was currently ranked around 4,000th and was very dissatisfied. She should go out every day to kill demonic beasts these few days. How many points would she obtain for killing a Tier 7 Snake King? If she could advance into Sword Monarch Cultivation base within the specified time during the points competition, she didn't mind swinging around to kill him, turning that arrogant Snake King into points. In a refuge city in the south, Yi Qinghan held the jade tablet tightly, then retrieved his gaze after a while. The jade tablet in his hand was green, indicating that the strength of the empire he belonged to was around the middle. Lu Muyen and the others' points have stopped. It seems that they should have reached a refuge city. Mu Yi put away the jade tablet in his hand and said. I just knew she wouldn't have fallen. When he mentioned Lu Muyen, Yi Qinghan's handsome face glowed with a soft light that even he didn't notice. After Lu Muyen's points skyrocketed on the first day, there was no movement. This sort of calm lasted for a month. Many people guessed that she had fallen, but he didn't believe it. Until today, when Lu Muyen's name started to fly straight up in the rankings again, did his heart that had been hovering finally fall back down. There wasn't much expression on Shifeng's face that looked as if it had face paralysis, but his tone was much more relaxed. I wonder when we'll meet again. Next to the 3 of them sat Ling Fei Yang. He touched a string of golden beads on his wrist and his eyes revealed some anticipation. The entries for the pupils of the 10 distinguished clans were all divided among the 4 strongest empires in the eastern region. The entries for each clan were determined by their own clans. One clan had 2 entries. In the Ling clan, after Ling Fei Yang's legs healed, he and Ling Fei Hao were chosen. As night fell, beast roars suddenly sounded in the originally quiet mountain. Lines of black shadows sprang out from the mountains and moved around. I found that the high-level demonic beasts in this space basically don't step out of the mountain forest during the day and start to become active at night, as if they have no scruples. Yunlan listened to the demonic beasts roar louder and louder than the previous as he said. Lu Muyen also noticed this problem. If they encountered the Snake King tonight, they might be chased by him constantly. Maybe it's because of the human powerhouses. She didn't find any arrays or restrictions on the periphery of the forest and couldn't think of other possibilities except for human reasons. There's a demonic beast tide coming in our direction, get ready to fight. A rare trace of fighting intent flashed past Yunzi Mo's black eyes. After hanging with Lu Muyen more, he also instinctively liked excitement and stimulation. The speed of the demonic beasts was very fast and in less than a quarter of an hour, they all surrounded Lu Muyen and the others. With a visual estimation, there was about a few hundred in the first wave. After the calls of the several Tier 6 demonic beasts, more demonic beasts continued to gather in this direction, forming a small beast tide. Let's kill, it's time to earn points. Lu Muyan's lips curled up and with a flash, she rushed towards the leading Tier 6 demonic beasts in the back. A small beast tide was formed and there were about 1,000 demonic beasts that gathered, most of them around Tier 5. Lu Muyen fought with the Tier 6 demonic beast while releasing all her spirit pets. At this time, having a lot of spirit pets sure was nice, as they were equivalent to cheats. Seeing this, the other people also released their spirit pets. With so many demonic beasts, they wouldn't even be able to kill them all. Before Lu Mu Bai came here, he contracted an initial phase Tier 6 water crocodile that Lu Muyen specifically caught for him, and he also released him right now. The demonic beasts contracted by the others were all Tier 5. Ah. Owner, this is really a feng shui 1 treasure place, so many demonic beasts, I like it. The human-eating blood-thorn vine king shouted excitedly as soon as he was released from the spirit beast ring. Back in the Sunset Cloud Mountain range, he wasn't even able to see many living demonic beasts in a year in his territory. Remembering it now, it was all snot and tears. Fortunately, he met Little Owner. Being able to open up his belly to absorb blood essence was something he had never experienced when he was in the Sunset Cloud Mountain range. The bottleneck that he had reached had also been loosened. If there were a few more beast tides like this, he would be able to break through. Embedding his main root into the ground, Shui stretched his golden vines to the surrounding tier 4 and 5 demonic beasts. In just a moment, the ground was covered with countless drained demonic beast corpses. Mo Yen knew the function of points, so although he disliked it, but he also took action. Because Bing Ji already revealed his true form, Lu Mu Yen didn't tell him to go play on the side either. He turned into an ice swan and swept the surroundings of tier 4 and 5 demonic beasts, venting all his recent frustration. With a wave of his wings, demonic beasts that rushed up without fearing death fell to the ground and died one after another. Even Meow Meow couldn't be idle anymore. She flew out of Lu Mu Yan's hand, turned into a huge python and swallowed mouthful after mouthful of the constantly besieging demonic beasts. Don't you all kill them all. Leave a breath for me to suck and eat. Seeing that his companions were so mighty, Shui couldn't resist shouting. There was a difference in effect of absorbing the blood essence of a living demonic beast to absorbing one that was died. Seeing how Lu Mu Yan's demonic beasts looked as if they were all overstimulated, scrambling to freely kill, and how in only a short while, only a third were left of over 1,000 demonic beasts, Fu Chen and the others couldn't resist twitching their eyelids. Wasn't this speed too exaggerated? What sort of spirit pets did she raise? Sure enough, with what kind of owner, there would be what kind of spirit pet. You all take it easy and leave some points for others. Lu Mu Yen couldn't resist twitching the corners of her lips seeing her own spirit pets act as if they hadn't killed in several lifetimes. Could they stop being so violent? After listening to her calls, the speed of the several demonic beasts slowed down. Mo Yen retracted his noble claws and jumped onto Lu Mu Yan's shoulder, no longer participating. To think he actually also lowered himself to kill low-level demonic beasts in groups. If those guys knew about it, they definitely would die of laughter. An hour later, the small beast tide that had gathered were all disintegrated by them and there wasn't a single surviving demonic beast. This efficacy was too fast and the points of the several people had also risen a lot. I only grew a bit more than 100 ranks, isn't this too slow? Lu Mu Yen picked up her jade tablet and looked at the rankings, furrowing her brows while saying, if they went out to find demonic beasts to kill in the daytime, it would be even slower. This speed is already very fast. After all, we're a month behind others. How about this? Lu Mu Yan's lively eyes turned as she smiled and said, in the future, well, rest in the refuge city during the day and travel at night. Otherwise it'll be difficult to advance to the top 10 at this speed. Advance to the top 10 she sure dared to think about it. Fu Chen pondered, then asked, what if we accidentally encounter a large beast tide? It was indeed easy to deal with such a small beast tide, but if they encountered a large beast tide, it would be difficult for them to escape. Otherwise, other sword masters would long have done something like resting during the day and rushing to earn points at night. What they encountered in the first refuge city that day was only a medium-sized beast tide, and it was already that difficult to deal with, let alone a large one. Most importantly, the appearance of a large beast tide generally meant a tier 7 demonic beast leader, so once they encountered one, they would definitely die. Won't happen with Mo Yen. Wherever tier 7 demonic beasts appear, we can all avoid them. Lu Mu Yen currently found that Mo Yen really was the perfect cheat. His demonic sense could sweep the auras within thousands of li too. The moment they discover a tier 7 demonic beast or a large beast tide, they could immediately change direction or run away on Bing J's back. The reason why they didn't use Bing Ji directly to travel was for training. They really couldn't rely too much on the ability of spirit pets. Sure, if that's the case, then it should be no problem for our points to reach above 1000th. Yun Zimo's eyes were filled with a smile. He had heard that a large number of sword masters would be eliminated in the preliminary round, but as long as the points remained above 1000th, then they could enter the second elimination round. Lu Mu Yen glanced at him, don't be so unpromising, my goal is the jade tablet rewards of the top 10. Cough Yun Zmo felt a little awkward and embarrassed after being glanced at by her, then after thinking about it, he said with a smile, then our goal is to be in the top 100. With a little abnormal monster like Lu Mu Yen, and earning points at such a rate, they at least had some hope of entering the top 100. The others were also infected by Lu Mu Yen and their hearts were filled with passion. Yi Qing Han and the others who were sitting cross-legged, recovering in the resting rooms of the refuge city suddenly opened their eyes and looked at the jade tablet in their hands. Lu Mu Yen and the others' points have started to skyrocket again. Mu Yi said in surprise. Could it be that a beast tide attacked a city? Shi Feng looked at the constantly jumping ranks and guessed. Such a speed of points increasing usually only happened when a beast tide attacked a city. Yi Qing Han played with the jade tablet in his hand and chuckled, she's about to catch up to us. We can't be too weak either. Their current rankings had been maintained at around 1000th. Originally, they were going to exert their strength in the last half a month, but now that they were being chased like this by Lu Mu Yen, they had a little more hope and passion in their hearts. Indeed. If we keep holding back, Yenner will probably surpass us in a short time. Ling Fei Yang had a light and joyous smile on his gentle and elegant face. Then let's freely earn points tomorrow. Mu Yi raised an eyebrow. The points race with Lu Mu Yen and the others was also a kind of fun adjustment to their boring life. Killing along the way, Lu Mu Yen and the others arrived at the refuge city at dawn. When they entered the city, many sword masters were on their way out of the city, and when these people saw that the group had only just entered the city, they all revealed some scrutiny and doubts, but they didn't pay much attention either. During the day, the inns were practically empty. At night, when other sword masters entered the refuge city, they began to go out to hunt demonic beasts. Such actions also aroused the curiosity of many people, but because it was night, other sword masters didn't dare to follow them to find out. At night, the 6 people killed demonic beasts to their heart's content to earn points. Every night, they would encounter several waves of small beast tides, and they also encountered a medium beast tide once. Such a situation continued for 7 or 8 days. When Lu Muyen and the others' scores soared into the top 1000th, it also attracted the attention of many sword masters of large kingdoms. Translated